Hi, everybody. How's everyone doing? Feeling good? Yeah? Awesome.
All right.
I'm so honored and excited to be here moderating this conversation. We're going to be talking about the science of skincare, the innovation around skincare, and also really getting into the inclusivity around skincare. So my name is Nitika, and I am very passionate about this conversation because I first learned about skincare as a means to an end, but it really grew into a passionate way for me to connect to myself over the years. And these incredible women are going to be sharing their expertise, their journey, and their insights as it relates to skincare. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves. Just a moment, yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Hannah Bronfman. I am a content creator. I'm also an angel investor and now starting up my own firm, as well as an entrepreneur and activist.
Hello everybody, how's everyone doing today? All right, my name is Dr. Dornechia Carter. I'm a dermatologist out of Frisco, Texas, just north of Dallas. My practice is Affinity Dermatology. I've been in practice for about 15 years now. I also have recently started the Affinity Dermatology Research Collaborative to run a research arm to my practice, and I'm so glad to be here.
I have to follow that energy. Hi, everybody. I'm Tiffany Yizar. I am the head of research and development for Unilever's beauty and well-being business in North America. So I get to look after the hair care and skincare products that you see in this market under brands like Tresemme, Dove, Nexxus, Shea Moisture, and Vaseline.
It's incredible. Well, I wanted to start off the conversation with really getting into a bit of a personal moment first for all of you. So I would love to know, what was the first point of entry for you with your skincare journey? What was that first like?
Should I go
Sure,
first?
go,
Okay,
Hannah, go
I'll
for
start.
it. Sure.
Okay, so I actually grew up as a dancer, and my mother was on Broadway, and so stage makeup was really kind of my first foray into skincare, cosmetics, and at a really young age, I was putting on a lot of stage makeup and having fun with, expressing myself through color cosmetics. And then I would say that kind of my second kind of more young adult moment of really coming into myself and my skin and everything was just post-college. I was experiencing really bad acne, and that really was due to the lifestyle I was living at the time. I was a DJ, late nights, not taking great care of myself, and had really bad skin. And actually, I had a dermatologist who was not so familiar with melanated-rich skin and put me on an antibiotic for about a year, and it didn't really solve anything. And so I kind of took it into my own hands and went on a holistic journey of trying to heal my skin, which started with my gut.
Thanks for sharing that. I also just want to say, this is something that comes up so often, is that we as women, especially women of color, take things into our own hands.
Absolutely.
All the time. So I love that you did that, Hannah. Thanks for sharing that. Dr. Carter, what about you?
Sure. My entry into dermatology really started when I was a kid. And, just shout out to my mom. My mom has psoriasis. And if any of you are familiar with that, it creates these really thick plaques with, they're red or purplish on skin of color, and they have really thick silvery scale. Sometimes it affects even your joints. You get psoriatic arthritis. And I watched her walk that journey and even at some points run out of new medications to try. And then finally new things come to the market. She's trying this and then it stops working. And so I've been able to walk that journey with her, and it's been absolutely important for me to stay abreast of that. And so really seeing her go through that and still encounter issues with her psoriasis, that's really been an inspiration for me to enter the dermatology field. And when I got to medical school, we have to try everything. So I don't know if anybody really knows how you go through everything, pediatrics and all the things. And when I got to dermatology, it was the one field that I woke up the next day ready to learn something new. I was excited to go back. And so I'm just really, really glad that I'm here.
Yeah, your mom is so lucky to have you. I have psoriasis
I'm lucky to have her.
So yes, it sounds like you are lucky to have each other. I'm so glad you could support her on her journey. Yeah. Tiffany, how about you?
So I think my entry to skincare, like many people, was just the skincare habits that my family taught me. In every especially Black household, there is a jar of Vaseline jelly. I can remember being told before you go outside into the to the cold winter dry air, put that Vaseline on your face. I would say we were slugging before slugging had a term. I think my intentional exploration in skincare probably started in my teens when I had acne and I had to figure out my way around which solutions would help me reduce my acne. And then later, I got to play within broader skincare and beauty. I actually started in college interning at Avon Cosmetics. And before that, I wasn't really a makeup person, mainly because my mom and the women in my life weren't necessarily. But it gave me a chance to play around with different color cosmetics and formats. And I still get to play with all of the above today, which is quite nice.
Yeah, that's exciting that you were able to make that your job. That's
Yeah.
pretty amazing. So while we're on you, Tiffany, I'd love for you to help us just understand the definition of melanin-rich skin. I know it feels obvious, but I think it's really important to highlight the definition.
Yeah, so melanin-rich skin really reflects the higher density of melanin, which is the pigment within your skin that everyone has the same amount of melanin-generating melanosomes, but the activity will be different. There are ways for us to imperfectly classify melanin-rich, I will say. We often use a scale called the Fitzpatrick scale, which is actually intended as a marker of the reaction of your skin to sun, but correlates in a way to the density of melanin that you have in your skin. So it's a scale 1 to 6. We look at, when we're doing clinical testing, at Fitzpatrick 4 to 6 to represent the melanin-rich population.
Thank you for that. And Dr. Carter, I'd love for people to understand, like when they're looking for either an esthetician or a doctor who's going to support them with their melanin-rich skin, what are the things that we need to be looking out for? What are some of the concerns that we need to be aware of? It'd be great for people to know that.
Absolutely. Well, the first thing is, making sure you approach somebody and you have an idea that they know what they're talking about, right? So it's okay to ask the question, word of mouth. Ask the question, hey, have you treated skin with, that's melanin rich? Do you have pictures? Do you have any sort of information that kind of backs things up? Where do you find a physician, or where do you find a provider of aesthetic services that knows what they're talking about? Well, you can go to trusted sources like the National Medical Association or the Skin of Color Society. A lot of these organizations will have a directory that you can find somebody. And then of course, when you have somebody who's prominent on social media, somebody who's is working in the high levels of research, those are your resources as well. Know who you're trusting to give you information.
Thank you for that. And just to highlight as well, what are some of the ways that we do need to treat the skin differently? I'd love for people to understand that.
Well, there's two things I would say. First is melanin-rich skin tends to have a little bit more oil, and the biggest thing is scarring, right? So almost all of us can get a scar and it leaves behind a hyperpigmented spot, or sometimes hypopigmented. But, so we have to be very, very cautious about what we do, because it can leave this long-lasting change in color and texture. The next thing that I'd say we have to address is the psychosocial aspect. The fact that, there is a lack of trust in the medical community, in the beauty community, because we have been experimented on, because we have been, we're not getting the information that we need. We're not getting the treatment that we need with the attention to the things that we need. So you have to address that psychosocial aspect, build a rapport with patients and with clients. So I'd say that's the second portion of it that I think sometimes people forget. When they come to me, they know it's not that I treat skin.
Yeah.
It's that I want to know your skin. I seek out that information. I'm going to help you as best I can.
Oh my gosh. Wouldn't everyone love to have a doctor that treated them that way? That sounds like a complete dream. And Hannah, I'd love to know from you. I know you invest in so many incredible businesses in the health and wellness world, and I'd love to hear from you. Like, are you excited about any innovations or any brands that are really honing in on doing melanin-rich skin right now? Or how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, absolutely. We were chatting in the green room about Live Tinted, which is a color cosmetics brand that is a very inclusive brand, and it's in Ulta. They've done such a great job at scaling And I think that for color cosmetics, it's much easier actually to be inclusive. It's a bit harder when we are talking about actual skincare and delivery mechanisms. There are some things like we all have to deal with hyperpigmentation or hypopigmentation, scarring, and then there are some color cosmetic brands that have large range of products, which makes them very inclusive. It's a bit harder when some brands have a very limited run. We've seen kind of the backlash from consumers when there isn't a large enough range. And it's kind of the opposite in a way when you're talking about brands that are solving for an underserved consumer, like a melanin-rich consumer. They might only have, maybe 11 shade ranges. But we're seeing really with Estee Lauder or Fenty that the minimum is really 45, right? There are some brands that have 45 shades on the market. So another brand I'm really excited about is Topicals. They're a skincare brand that's really solving for chronic skin conditions with an emphasis on melanin-rich skin. While their product offering is actually quite small, it's very, very critical, and it's, again, really serving a consumer that is overlooked. And they're growing very, very fast. So Live Tinted and Topicals we love, Ame Colé, and there are so many others, but yeah.
It's encouraging to see that people are really making that effort to be more inclusive.
Absolutely.
It's beyond important, so thank you for that. So Tiffany, I'd love to hear from you. Clinical trials are a big part of understanding this population. And if you don't know, it's actually very hard to get folks who have melanin-rich skin to be a part of these trials. So I'd love to hear what Unilever is doing to create that trust and support and increase this.
Yes, so thank you for that question. I think a stat that sits with me is under 8%. There was a review done across dermatology that under 8% of dermatological clinical trials that were done were representative of the Black population. So that's under indexing that population's representation in the United States. We actually made a pivotal shift as Unilever and our Unilever Clinicals team to open up our recruitment, kind of passively open up our recruitment in 2018. And as we did that, we were tracking what is the population looking like in our clinical studies. We do routine clinical studies like moisturization. So when you're talking about a population where addressing dry skin is a number one need state, making sure that they're in the population that we're clinically testing is important. 2018, we made that shift. As we looked at data from 2018 and 2019, the clinical shift wasn't moving fast enough for us. So 2020, we actually made a concerted positive effort. What I know about us is we have the scale, we have the demand, we have the multitude of requests that then can partner with our clinical research organizations to get the right population into our panel pool. What I'm proud of is as we look at the data now, we see 2 times the representation of melanin-rich skin population in our routine clinicals. We see 6 times the representation of the Black population within our clinicals, so that what you see in our marketing of who's using our products is really reflected in the data set behind it. And really for us, it's to make sure that we're delivering products that work for our entire population in the United States that shops our shelves. And that we can, with data, say that they do what they are supposed to do. Of course, even within that, there are certain clinical studies that we would be really thoughtful about and really lean on our derm partners to think about the rigor of the study and whether there needs to be a change or not. And that's, again, with organizations like the Skin of Color Society, where we get that kind of advice and counsel.
Yeah, and something that I just keep hearing being brought up over and over is just this conversation around trust. It's just so embedded, and you wouldn't necessarily think that skincare and trust go hand in hand as much as it does. But Hannah, I'd love to hear from you. What do you see the role in what you do with with all the work that you're doing on social media and with the brands that you work with? How do you see trust being a part of that and creating that trust with the people who follow you and look up to you?
Sure. So first of all, skincare is so intrinsically, connected to confidence, right? And everyone wants to feel good about themselves, and the way you present yourself to the world, it's kind of skin forward, skin first, right? So it can be totally traumatic when you are dealing with chronic skin issues or even flare-ups that that go hand in hand with autoimmune issues or hormonal acne. And so to me, there's a lot of noise in the world of social media. And I've always been exposed to a more holistic approach and really understanding the root cause of issues. And while, of course, skincare is, solving for topical, the topical solution, I think it always needs to be paired with lifestyle. And so the emphasis, I think, that I play in the world of social media and what I try to put out there is that that balance, right? Of using your topicals, but also it's your lifestyle, right? So how can we infuse those, or really also pushing to advocate for more functional medicine and food as medicine. So these are kind of broader trends that I think about when I do think about skincare as a whole. So we go back to trust.
Yeah.
There are a lot of brands out there that are saying they do something, or they don't have the clinical trials, or maybe they put out a product with the clinical trial, but then a new ingredient came out and they changed the formula, and then they didn't do another clinical trial. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot that's not communicated to us. So I think, I joke I'm like the ultimate consumer. I like to dive in. I love products. I love to play around with things. But there are certain ingredients that I know my skin can handle, and there's things that I know my skin can't handle. So I think everyone just needs to take their own approach and kind of figure out what works for them and not really succumb to what people on the internet are telling you to do. So when I work with brands, I really work with brands that I have used before, that I trust. I usually have a call with brands before and make sure that the ingredients are actually the ingredients that they're using, that there are clinical trials. Like I'm very conscious about that. So yeah, I think trust and the people who you look to, it can be, and again, I'm in this position because I went to a dermatologist who I thought I trusted, and it turned out that it led me down a even kind of worse path for my skin, because it really left my gut in a place where I had to start over. And so I think that's also what gave me my perspective. But trust is something that is really, really hard to actually have, and it's so easily broken. So, and that goes across our lives in general, right? And I think the same approach goes to your skincare. And sometimes I have friends who are like, when they find that brand that just works for them, it's like they are not effing around with anything else. And then you've got other people who are like maybe ingredient forward, and 2 different brands have put out something with azelaic acid, and they're like, oh, well, maybe I want to try that, or a mandelic acid. I think we're seeing more trends around brightening and solving for some of these larger hyperpigmentation issues. So skincare is kind of like a choose your own adventure, with also trusting your gut.
Yeah, I really love that. And I think that's how you've built trust, is you also, I notice, really hold brands accountable. Like if you don't like something, Hannah's gonna let you know, which I think builds the trust as well.
Yeah, I just feel like we can't sugarcoat things, and well, I appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah, nobody has time for sugarcoating. It's
Totally.
2025. So no, I really appreciate that, and I think that's just so beautifully said. And Dr. Carter, I wanted to ask you, I'm thinking about something as everyone's sharing right now. I'm thinking about the beginning of my skincare journey and how just intimidating it was. And I think all of us have shared our own version of how skincare can feel very intimidating. If somebody came to your office and they were feeling that intimidation or just that vulnerability, right? Which most doctors sort of push right past, and they don't even know that you're feeling vulnerable or intimidated. What would you say to them? Because maybe somebody in the audience is feeling that way.
What would I say to the person who is feeling vulnerable or scared? I approach every person as if that's the position they're in. When you go see a physician or you go see a doctor or a PA or whomever, it's scary. You don't know what answer they have on the other side of that door. And, sometimes it's something really bad, or, it might be a cancer, or it's going to be hard to solve this. And so I approach everybody with, from the mindset that I need to put you at ease. So my first job is to build a rapport. So I want to get to know you. I want to get to know your child. It's talking to you a little bit and learning about your habits. Sometimes I'm asking kids about, or adults, what does your routine look like? What does your day look like? What do you like to wear? What does your morning look like? And they don't realize that I'm actually trying to figure out what can I actually fit into their routine that will work for them. Because I can give you the best medications in the world, but if you don't use them because you're not used to putting on products at night, or this is too abrasive for you and you're just not used to that texture, then I've done no good for you. So it's developing that rapport with patients and trying to make sure they're put at ease and developing a trust, because also if patients don't tell me what's going on, then I can't help them, right? So sometimes people want to say what they think I want to hear. No, I want to hear everything. Tell me what, I can't do this, or I know that I'm not going to take that pill, or I can't put that cream on and I'm just not going to be successful, because that's going to help me help you be more successful. So yeah, that's how I like to build that to build that rapport so that I can put patients at ease.
I love that. And I think what you said about sometimes people don't share everything with their doctor, I've definitely found that I want to omit a few things here and there. But I think doing that inner work first to really acknowledge what is going on for you and with your body, with your skin, so that you can show up to the conversation really owning that. I think that would be really, really supportive for some of you. So we just have a few minutes left. Unfortunately, this conversation has been so beautiful, and I'm hoping it's been really empowering for all of you to listen to. But I wanted to ask you all one last question, and I really want to understand, what is something that you hope to see in the conversation around skincare in the next 5 years? So who would like to start? Tiffany, you want to jump in? Great.
I think for me, I think about skincare as everyday skin health. So continuing to see the skincare industry look at and examine barriers to people accessing what is fundamental everyday skin health. I think really specifically about sun care. Everyone needs it. It is critical to protecting your largest organ, but there are true barriers to skin, especially melanated skin, finding the options that work for richer skin tone. So I'm starting to see good shifts, but really seeing that come into day-to-day solutions that are also delightful, so that people can work it into their routine is very important to me.
Can I ask a question really quickly on that
Yeah.
topic? So on the topic of sun care, I've heard obviously that the U.S. is not as advanced with the filters that they allow for products here. And so that sun care in Europe, for instance, actually has these much more progressive filters. So what does that mean from like a legislation side for where innovation can go in sun care in the U.S.?
Yeah, so so I know we have a couple of minutes left, so I'll kind of go quickly. The FDA regulates what we call monograph ingredients. So there are specific ingredients that have been safety tested. It's generally regarded as safe and effective. And there are a suite of ingredients that have been in that status for sunscreens for quite some time. It's actually currently under review which ingredients are in. And then there's a large bit of work that's actually quite expensive work if we wanted to add more ingredients in. We have effectively delivered sun protection within the monograph ingredients we have in the US right now. What I think is important is making sure that that monograph stays and is diverse to reflect the different skin tones in our market. and then we will see how it evolves over time. But the solutions that we have on shelf today are still providing the sun protection, minimum SPF 15, but really 30 is the new 15 and 50 is the new 30, that everybody should be using, especially on your face and hands and all over body.
Thank you. That's a great question. Thanks for adding that in. I wanted to know too. Dr. Carter and Hannah, do you want to just share for really quickly what you are hoping to see? Yeah.
Sure. Well, the thing that I'm most excited to see is really in the research space, and we were discussing that before we stepped on stage today. The research space. So we really have to start throwing our hat into the ring. We have to invest. We have to study. And we know that race concordant and gender concordant, for it's International Women's Day and Women's Month, right? So we want to see ourselves reflected not only in the studies, but in the researchers themselves. And so that's what I want to see, because I think that is the gateway to seeing more of our faces in these trials. I mean, I've been a part of speakers groups and looked at these trials, and I mean, I've seen these tiny numbers of women, these tiny numbers of skin of color subjects. It's unconscionable. And so I think that the step in that direction is for us as clinicians to throw our hat in the ring and say, hey, I'm going to bring patients to the table and say, we're going to study your skin, do it safely, and so that's what I'm excited to see the most.
Awesome. Hannah, what about you?
I know we're a little over time.
It's okay.
I'll keep it quick. I think I'm excited to see a bit more innovation in skincare, whether that's through delivery mechanisms or having a beauty brand that's built on blockchain, which I think could be really interesting. I mean, the chain is all about transparency and talk about trust. You could see where all the ingredients come from. I think that would be really interesting. But yeah, delivery mechanisms and more interesting ingredient profiles. I think that's kind of what I'm looking for, at least from an investor standpoint.
Love that. Thank you all so much. Please give these women a round of applause. It was so amazing. Thank you all. Yeah, thank you. And enjoy your next talk.